Minnie is so little. She only weighs 5 pounds. So she never goes anywhere by herself. Meaning her sisters are always with her. She stayed outside right now, though, because I'm smoking. Her sisters were out here just now. Lily and Daisy. We used to call them the triplets. Which is funny because I used to want triplets. But I realized when I was about 30 years old that I had had a child at the age of 16 because I would probably not have any more children. And I was right. I'm 50 and I only have one child. So when I got these 3 Chihuahuas, it was like a sign from God that was telling me you couldn't have more children, and I know you really wanted triplets at one point, but this is the second best thing. Second best isn't always so bad. Minnie came from a very wonderful family, and the tragedy that Minnie lost her owner. She was young, like me. One of the things that struck me was they were not even a year old, and I thought, what, they just lost their owner. What's going to happen to them? They're not even a year old. This was in 2014. And then I had the fortunate, I was fortunate enough to come up and visit the family. And the second I saw these 3 little Chihuahua angels, my heart just opened up. And I said to them, do not get rid of these animals. And if that's the case, I will take them from you. I basically fell in love. She's 5 pounds of wonderful. And she comes with 2 sisters, and they're like a 3-headed dog. They're always together. Right now they're not because the 2 of them went inside, but Minnie waited for me. She's very attentive to me. Always watching me. Her eyes never ever leave me. She's constantly no, she knows everything. Like, where am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? And recently, I'm gonna say maybe about 6 months, I started noticing her actually relaxing and not being as vigilant and just kind of chilling out and looking around, or even resting and sleeping, always by my side. But it took her a really long time to realize I'm not going anywhere. I don't work and I'm not going anywhere. So she's kind of let her guard down a little bit, but it's been 7 years. She's just an amazing little puppy. She hates the rain and the cold. And she won't go outside if it's too cold or wet. So you have to keep those puppy pads available everywhere, because if it's wet or cold, she will not go out there. She just won't. And our sisters usually follow suit. So if Lily and Daisy are with her, which is 99.9% of the time, they won't go outside either, so it's funny. And they all pee on top of each other. So if Minnie pees first, then Daisy will come and pee on top of it, and then Lily will come and pee on top of it. So I have carpet. I'm constantly having to shampoo my rug. not shampoo it like with a company, but like shampoo it like DIY style, you know? I have one of those little handheld portable shampoo one spot cleaners, but I clean up, sometimes I clean up a mess because Honey does the same thing. She's, in the wintertime, especially like when it's really cold or really wet outside, I don't let them out. I keep them in my room at night. So, they try to make it onto the pads, but sometimes they don't. And that's why I have to spot clean a lot. But I don't care. It's that carpet's gonna come out someday anyway. It's not always gonna be there. But yeah, those spot cleaners are amazing. This is my second one that I had. I've had 2 of them from. Both of the spot cleaners are from what's that company? Not Dyson, but the other one. Anyway, so yeah, they come in pretty handy. I also have one of these like sweepers, electric sweepers. I almost said they cost $5. They don't. They're like $20. But it's rather cheap, and it's like a sweeper for like the floor, the bare floor. But you could vacuum the carpet with it, and it works amazing. And you just do your work. Makes it so much easier to pick up the hair. She doesn't shed a lot, but she does have, like some of her hair falls off, but it doesn't like a lot. In the summertime, more of it comes off. Like right now, I noticed that Scout's coat, she's a cattle dog. Her coat is kind of like, it looks like it's turning into cotton at the base. But I think that's just like it gets thicker in the winter, and then she sheds it in summer. So right now we're in full blast middle of winter, and as you can see, this is our sky. It's not too bad. It is not too bad. The sky in Argentina in the last 5 days has been really crazy, though. They had these like really monstrous clouds. It looked like a tube right down and like above the actual beaches, and it was like just a giant tube. Like when you see tubes in the ocean of water, like where the surfers like to go inside of, but this one was like in the clouds, and it was really scary. I saw it today. I saw it on YouTube. I have the worst internet. I can, 9 times out of 10, I'm in the middle of a great show, and then it like cuts off. And then I have Fire TV. Oh, my neighbors have a baby. I can't see them, but they live next door. Yeah, that Fire TV, I don't know. I mean, my husband cut cable because we wanted to save money, but I don't know if it's because we have a lot of devices that our Fire TV doesn't work as great, but like, it constantly is like going out. And today is Sunday, and it's daylight savings, and it took me a really long time to get out of bed today. I have an alarm clock that goes off at 7 every morning, but like this morning I was in bed still, and it was like 10 o'clock. Maybe 9:30, 9:45. So I slept kind of long, but like I was really in a deep sleep when the dogs were trying to get me up, and I was like, no. Sometimes when I do that, I regret it because, they'll try to wake me because they want to go out to go potty, and then I'm so in deep sleep that I'll be like, no, and I'll just stay asleep, and then when I wake up after a while, because they won't leave me, they'll just kind of sit there and babysit me. And then I finally will get out, and first thing you do when you get up, obviously, is go use the restroom. So, I gotta go do pee, and they gotta go do pee, so I gotta let them out first, then I gotta go, and then by the time they get back, I realize I should have let them out when they wanted me to, because now I have a pee stain on one of the pee pads. But yeah. And it's a living. These are my dogs. This is what I do. It's pretty freaking amazing, if you ask me. SoCal life. Is it worth it? Yeah. Actually, it is. So I was out here, just reading my book. It's kind of old. It was like 92 written in. I've got another one that's Windows Vista. That one's a little bit bigger, but I have to read it too. I've had it forever, like 7 or 8 years, maybe longer. I gotta get them new clothes. The last time I usually get their clothes at Steinmart because they have a pretty good selection of little clothes for dogs. And last time I went there, they didn't have anything. And then they were directing everyone online. And this was like last year, like last February. And it's just, it's been a rough year. Who's got time to go out and look for stuff? Oh, there's Scout letting us know she's around. That's my cattle dog. I watch a lot of Mexican YouTube because I like to see what's going on in the highlands of Mexico, and I don't have any family over there, but I imagine that it must be really rough for the people that live there. I'm fluent in Spanish, so I can watch like Spanish YouTubers, and I noticed that there's a lot of Mexicans that have cattle dogs. Like, it must be like, and usually, like, I've noticed also that the cattle dogs belong to women. So, like, women love cattle dogs in Mexico. It's a rough breed, and, I hear they live to, like, 25. There was one cattle dog that I saw in the news within the last 12 months, and she had, like, 19-year-old cattle dog in Australia who a little 3-year-old had gone missing. And the dog was so smart, it followed her around and then into some, like, brush or whatever, and it was like a dry marsh or whatever, and the kid like stayed in there like the whole, like, overnight, and the cattle dog stayed alongside her and kept her warm. So when they found her the next day, the dog was still with her. So they're very, very good dogs, apparently. But that particular type of dog is it was bred, like crossing a type of, I think it was like a border collie with a dingo. So she's a little bit of a wild girl, but I love her. She's really good. She's just a really good dog. So they're gonna be 7. No, they're 7 years old. They'll be 8. Let's see. Yeah, they'll be 8 in June, and then she'll be 8 in a few days. Honey, honey, honey. Oh, Minnie. Yeah, these dogs are amazing. They really are. They keep me company. It was a really rough pandemic, time-wise, in terms of, like, just, doing anything. And we weren't able to do anything. In fact, I didn't even walk them, but like maybe maybe once or twice, maybe 3 times at the most. And during like one particular month, like after some of the wake of the madness of the pandemic and the spread of the infection, like when it was starting to subside and it started to drop really low in like cases and hospitalizations, that's when I went back out and started walking them. But even then I didn't feel safe because sometimes I'd forget my mask and I'd be like maybe down the end of the block into the and around it to the next block, and I'd see kids getting off school buses and wearing their masks. So that was kind of odd. So then I didn't really do that much, because masks, it's hard. It's not hard to breathe, but it's hard to talk like when you're trying to like film. And I don't know why it's taken me so long to become, a filmmaker, but not an actual filmmaker, because that alludes to me being like some type of a, giant movie maker, and I'm not. But I took cinema in high school as an elective, and it was a pretty cool class. All we did was like watch movies. But yeah, it's not that nice out here. It's kind of cold. And I never come out here and sit, or No. I spit up over there. There's this thing that I have with my along with my diagnosis for MS. I have one of the drawbacks of this disease for me is I can't swallow, and so it could get funny, but at the end of the day, when you chew your food, you masticate it, and then it, your tongue muscle shovel is, pushes it back towards your epiglottis, which is that little thing that hangs at the back of your throat, and then your epiglottis kind of like moves out of the way. Oh my gosh, she's taking a poop. Your epiglottis moves out of the way, and then it goes down into your esophagus, and then your esophagus starts to churn your food, and the act of that churning is called peristalsis, and my peristalsis is broken, so I get it past the epiglottis down into the esophagus, but then it gets stuck. It's not churned right away. It's like, that's one of your motor skills, where your body automatically does it. It's it's like a motor, it just starts. And so that's one of my symptoms. Another one of my symptoms is I have I'm very sensitive to the weather. So when I was in 7th grade science class, I remember that we covered one particular part of science, which was anyway, I lost my train of thought because I hear an airplane. But yeah, my peristalsis doesn't work. And I was talking about the barometric pressure. So in 7th grade, you learn about the barometric pressure in terms of weather, and that was one of the first things that was affecting me. So I like to say I have to have a happy medium. It can't be too cold, or it can't be too hot, because if it's too cold, like, I guess I have an inner barometric pressure, and if it falls too low, like my back starts to hurt. So I am on a permanent prescription of ibuprofen, because that's when your back hurts, it's a sign of inflammation. So the ibuprofen is an anti-inflammation helper, and also it takes your pain away. So I have to use that. And then if it gets too hot, I get like the worst headache, migraines. They come on like all of a sudden I'll just start seeing like the water's moving right now like that. That's what it looks like. And so I'll know right away that like something's coming on, because my vision will start to have like it's like I'm looking through water. And so so that's, difficult too, because, a headache can be paralyzing. Like, it literally gets in the way of anything. That is what they refer to as, when you want a better quality of life and you have these ailments, then it is your job and your duty as a human being and, a member of, like, a health, where they go out and they, like, look for cures for whatever, for ailments, diseases. So yeah, you're basically, they don't know anything about MS. MS is one of those things that they just don't know how or what, causes it. One of the things that they say that they think it is that there is it's called the Sunshine Study, and the study, it studied like women with MS mostly, and like how, the MS actually, se desarrolla inside their body, which means, it unfolds. And so it's really weird. In Mexico, it's virtually unheard of, because I'm guessing women have the symptoms, but they just ignore them until they get so bad. And every case is different. No two cases are alike. So I have a very mild case, which means it's not that bad. That's, per my neurologist's words, and she runs the MS clinic over at USC here in California. And her name is Dr. Langer, Annette Langer. And, she told me that I wasn't that bad. So for somebody to say that it's not that bad, it's like, it's kind of like telling a pregnant person that she's not that pregnant, like what in the H are you saying, like, of course it's bad, because at the end of the day, I was walking into walls. I was walking straight, but like I knew that any minute I was gonna like go sideways and like hit the wall, and so I would push my hand out, but in my brain it seemed like I was gonna touch the wall, but in reality, physically, like I wasn't reaching even for the wall. It was just, it seemed that way. So I knew that like something was going on, and it was neurological. At my worst, I had to rearrange my furniture in the house, because I literally had to walk on furniture. I couldn't walk otherwise, without like fear of falling. And that's one of the symptoms, people who are predisposition, like they tend to fall a lot. Like falling is a lot, they're constantly falling. And I'm not saying like every single day. I'm saying, when I got diagnosed, I was already 37. No, not 37. Let's see. I got diagnosed in 2013, so that was 8 years ago almost. And so, but I had, my first fall was in 2007. So I knew that like I was standing, and then all of a sudden something gave way, where like my limbs just kind of like felt like jello, and then I poof fell to the ground. So things like that started happening to me. I would go to walk my dog, because I was very like alert and aware of what was happening, but I didn't know like, I didn't know diagnosis wise what it could be. I just knew that something was going on in my metaphysical and in my body that I had to pay attention to. So I started taking my dogs out for a walk, and this was before I had any of these dogs. I had just Duke. And I would go for walks, and you know, I would be standing literally at the curbside waiting to, for a car to go past, at like a, the intersection, but it would be like in the middle of a neighborhood, like just a tiny little, like by a school or whatever. And the first time that happened to me, I was walking my dog and he saw a squirrel. And I kid you not, I have one of those retractable leashes, and he took off running, and I saw what happened. But by the time what I saw and my brain actually like answered, I guess, the message, the message wasn't clear. There was an interruption in the message, and I actually I went to take my foot off the curb to put it on the ground of the street level, and for some reason, my foot didn't get the message and it didn't move, but my other foot started to move, and all of a sudden I just fell, boom, right on my knee. And I thought, what just happened? What did I just do? That was one of the times. That was on my way back. Another time on my way back, and this was weeks apart or months apart, maybe 3 months apart. I was walking home from a walk, and I had gone and walked around the school, and I was coming home, and Duke saw a squirrel, and he took off running, and there was a lot of slack in the, I had a retractable leash, so by the time he reached, the end, I was holding that leash so tight, I had such a hard grip on it that I flew into the air. I went literally Superman style, flew with my hands out, my legs behind me, and I landed on my stomach. And I'm not kidding you, the first thought that came to my mind was, oh my God, my face. And so I arched my body so that when I landed right on my hips. And so, this was after 2010, because I had already, from 07 was when my first fall was, to 2010 I had maybe 3 or 4 falls, and none of them were severe, but they were severe enough to where I knew that something was wrong, in my brain. I could tell that something was going on. And so I had already gotten married to my husband, and so I started, I followed up. I even told him, I said, I gotta go to the hospital, I've gotta, get, before that I was spending hundreds of dollars. Oh, I scared her. I was spending hundreds of dollars just going to the doctor, not random doctors, because at the time I had picked a doctor that I had been seeing on a regular basis, yearly, for whatever ailments I had. He was actually the one that told me one of my first symptoms was depression, and he was actually the one that told me, women don't get depressed. Women have girlfriends. They just call up their their girlfriends, and they go to lunch or whatever. And I was like, wow, this guy's serious about that. So I tried to go back and do whatever I needed to do. I continued my my activities, but I was aware that there was something wrong with me, because obviously I wasn't well. People don't just fall for no reason. It just doesn't happen. And so after 2010, I started seeing the doctor every few months, and she would be like, what are you doing here again? Because Kaiser assigns you a doctor. And so, the first day that you meet her, she takes whatever, if you follow up like I do, when I got married, my first, thing to do was go get a checkup, go get, a physical. So that's why I was seeing her so many times, because I just kept falling, from 07 to 2013. I just kept falling. I must have had maybe 5 or 6 serious falls, and I never hurt my body. I never got a broken, bone. it was just, you know, bruises and scrapes and just landings, like hard landings. You know, I took karate when I was probably about 25 and maybe 23. I took karate. I took a course of karate here in Reseda. It was a karate school on Reseda Boulevard, near Sherman Way. And I took karate. So I had learned how to land, you know, whenever you're going to, you know, God forbid if you're ever attacked, you know, like, you have to know how to land. And so I knew how to land and how to roll and how to fall. But, like, these falls weren't like someone attacking you. These falls were like random, you know, like when you hear, like, a noise, like a sharp noise behind you and you turn, like, really quickly. Like, that's how fast these falls were. They weren't, you know, you couldn't see them coming. They just came out of nowhere. And so, you know, I had been very vigilant because, you know, these things, it was really hard for me because at the time I was a dancer and I was working at a nightclub. And I was working at a nightclub in the daytime. So I already had my, you know, so-called clientele. And, you know, I had established rapport with my business and with my camaraderie. You know, I had made camaraderie, you know, with, like, all of my my fellow, you know, women. And it was just really hard to know, like, you know, I had a shelf life in that business. It was hard for me to realize that. It wasn't hard to come to terms with, but what was hard coming to terms with was that I was still quite young and I wasn't ready to retire yet. You know, I wasn't even 40 years old yet when my onset came on. So at the onset of my MS, I wasn't even 40 years old. But I had done my research and I had done, you know, hours and hours, countless hours of just being on the internet. And, this is what it's like to have dogs. Okay, stop it. Stop barking. There's nothing over there. No, go in the house. Go in the house. Go eat your food. Go eat your food in the house. So by the time I realized that I had, you know, some type of, you know, disease, undiagnosed disease, I already knew that it was either one of two things. It was either Crohn's disease or multiple sclerosis. So by the time that I realized that I needed to narrow the symptoms down, I had developed, you know, a sense of what to look for. And Wikipedia, people say Wikipedia is not that great and, you know, they're not always right. But I have to tell you, man, they were right on this. They were on spot, literally, with what I was going through. And I was able to decipher which of the two diseases I would eventually be diagnosed with. And I already knew of the two diseases which one would be most likely. I knew that it would be most likely, you know, Crohn's disease, but it seemed really severe to me. And I was hoping to God that it wasn't. And then I knew that the other one was where the people were walking really wobbly in that video. That was my mentality. My mentality was, if it's not Crohn's, it's got to be that other one that I saw where, you know, there was a video that accompanied in Wikipedia, you know, the entire description of multiple sclerosis. And so I studied that whole Wikipedia page. Like, I read it, I must have read it like, you know, nine or 10 times. And I finally just closed it because at some point there's just too much information and you tell yourself, okay, I've seen enough. I don't want to look anymore. I don't want to see anymore. And, you know, now it's up to the doctors to do it. Now it's up to them to figure out what's wrong with you. And, you know, it comes down to tests. And, you know, I didn't know what they were going to do or how I was going to meet the criteria. I didn't even know if I had to meet the criteria yet. The way I realized I had to meet the criteria was, You know, once I learned of that wobbly video on Wikipedia under MS, and I saw the guy walking, you know, and then I like clicked on Le Hermit sign, which is what the guy had. Okay, so the video is, you could go on there and check it out for yourself. The video has a, it has a man walking, and he looks like he's drunk. And when I saw the video, it reminded me of when my brother, my oldest brother, and I were driving in my car one day. And I was driving, I must have been driving erratic. And he goes, oh my God, Loopy, because that's my middle name. He goes, oh my God, Loopy, you're gonna get arrested for drunk driving, and you're not even gonna be drunk. And I laughed because I thought that was funny, but you know, it's really not funny. And that's what happened, you know. So I saw the video, and then like, you know, I was able to like turn off, shut down, and then just, you know, go about my business, go to work, whatever, you know, and carry on, you know. I mean, you have to remember this happened in a time span of like 7 years, okay? And so, so within those 7 years, I got married, and then I got insured, and then I got, you know, I got, I just got wise, you know. I started to pay attention, and I started to like, you know, just really follow up and follow through and go through all the information again, and, you know, go up all the different avenues of the information. And I would click on anything that turned blue. If it was in black and white and the writing all of a sudden became blue, I clicked on it. I would even click on red because I wanted to know, what the heck are they talking about? So I came up to this one thing called Le Hermit sign, right? And it was because in the 1800s, there was a man who, in France, right? There was a man in France who was a doctor, and most of, you know, his patients were women. And they were women in their 40s, and they were all coming in with the same ailment. And so you have to remember, this was, you know, it took me 7 years to diagnose myself, right? And by 2013 I was already married for 3 years. So the Hermit sign is the women would come in and report the same symptom. And the symptom was they would stretch their arms out. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. That was my symptom. I was doing yoga, and that's how that happened to me. I experienced Le Hermit sign like 5 days before, you know, I had made an appointment after that fall off of that curb, you know, with my doctor. And so I got the information on Wikipedia, and I saw what the Hermit sign was, and the women said that they all had the same symptoms. The symptoms were, you know, they dropped their head to their chin, and when they dropped their chin to their chest, right? I'm sorry, their chin to their chest, touching it, they would get like an electrical shock from the back of the base of the neck, right, where your brainstem is, all the way down their back, like literally on their spine, down the backs of their legs, and then it would disappear in a split second, like, it, you know, like if you were shocked suddenly. And so I thought, wow, you know, like at the time after reading that, I said to myself, oh yeah, so they named the symptom Le Hermit sign after the doctor named Le Hermit, you know? And I found that fascinating because I thought, wow, I'm a hermit, and this symptom is literally called the Hermit sign, you know? And so I found that fascinating because I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't leave my house. I was so fatigued. I just couldn't leave my house. Like, I would get tired just getting ready to leave, and then I would have to scrap the whole entire day, you know? And I've got plenty of pictures and video and footage of me, but at the time I didn't know what was happening. So I would just turn on my video camera and just videotape myself, like, you know, looking completely made up, ready to leave, but unable to move. Which is quite interesting because I hadn't reminded myself of any of that footage until just now. So that's how I learned of the hermit sign, you know, and so now it was no longer a guessing game, you know. It was now it was just a matter of time, you know, like a matter of diagnosis. When would I be diagnosed? And so I just had to continue living and continue going on with my life. And, you know, always in the back of my head, you got to be careful. You got to watch out what's going on. Your brain's not, you know, I was as sharp as a knife, literally. Like, that's how sharp I was. I just couldn't, like, keep it in the back of my head. It was always at the forefront. And so I was hyper vigilant about everything. Like, I couldn't take a step without thinking to myself, if this step fails me and it turns into spaghetti, like the last time when I fell, you know, where I went to use my foot, and my foot literally turned into spaghetti, like a noodle, you know. So I was hyper vigilant. I didn't want to fall. I already knew that people thought I was crazy because I had, you know, my behavior wasn't erratic, but like, I always said what was on my mind and never thought about what I always, you know, called them as I saw them. And, you know, it was I'm an entertainer, you know, so that it was entertaining. And, but yeah, needless to say, I was so hyper vigilant. I would never put myself in a position where there was danger because I was too hyper vigilant. Like, if I even so much as saw danger or thought there was danger nearby, I would be like, exit stage left. And so, my comrades literally figured that out. And, you know, before I knew it, like, let's just say I had a lot of clout. But yeah, my career as a dancer ended abruptly. I was living in West Hills at the time, and I hated living over there because it was so far from the Central Valley, where I worked. And it was just a really quiet neighborhood, you know, the West Hills. I would get off the off-ramp on the one where you get off on for El Camino High School. It's like the last stop before you go into Hidden Hills. And yeah, you know, it was a really, really rough time for me. But, you know, I did my best. It wasn't a good time either because you have to remember that in 2008 there was the housing market crash. And so when that happened, that's when we came to live here. This was a fixer-upper that we bought. We haven't even finished painting it. See, it used to be brown. Before that, it was blue, and it was like a really faded blue, ugly blue. But so yeah, we were in the middle of the housing market when I started falling, and so, not to mention the housing market crash put a dapper on the business, you know. But I just couldn't rely on it anymore because, you know, I was falling, and who's to say I wasn't going to fall while I was on stage, you know, which it did happen. And, but it didn't happen like you think. I was standing at the pole. Yeah, I'm going to tell you the story. And I had my back on the pole, like leaning back against it. And all of a sudden my legs gave way and I fell. And as I was falling, I had already gripped the pole. So the pole, it seemed like I was sliding down off of it. I was actually in a full stand-up position. But like I grabbed the pole, but it, like, for some reason I wasn't fast enough. So that was another time that I thought, okay, something's going on, you know, and the entire audience was like, whoa, what happened? And I was like, I don't know, I think I stepped on an earring or something. At the time I was wearing earrings and one of my earrings had fallen off, and I did step on it, but it was like a split second. By the time my brain realized my leg was going to give out, I was already on the floor. And and I laughed, and everybody laughed, and I got tipped extra, whatever, but this was what was happening to me. I was working, and there was a housing market crash, and people were talking about stimulus checks, but I had other things on my mind. I was thinking to myself, am I gonna, like what's happening to me? So, I had already started making these appointments for the doctor, and had started going in to see her, and she was already sick of me, coming in. I mean, it got to the point where she would say to me, like, what are you doing here? Like, what are you doing in here again, And, usually I would leave empty-handed, because she would be like, well, just be careful, try not to fall, what do you need from me? And I would be like, God, nothing. I just want to know, like, if there's something wrong with me. And, I didn't know you had to meet the criteria, but every time I left the doctors, I would come home and I would, have a renewed, faith in researching. And so I continued to research, and I continued to research, and I just continued to research. And before I knew it, I was sitting in the pew of a church. It wasn't even a church. It was like a chapel, and I was sitting in the middle of the pew with my husband, and my husband's boss had passed away suddenly, and I'm sitting in the pew, and all of a sudden both my legs start buzzing, like zzz, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, like I literally can hear that in my brain, and I could feel it, and like I wasn't doing anything. And so I thought, okay, what's going on here? And so I said, okay, this was a Thursday, so I said, okay, I'm gonna call my doctor, I'm gonna make an appointment, because I was just gonna do my due diligence. And so I did, I made an appointment, and that was on a Thursday. I got the appointment set for Monday. That Sunday, okay, before the Monday, I was so tired. I mean, incredibly tired, like fatigued. And I said to myself, God, why don't you join a gym or something? Like, this is ridiculous. It's literally like you're constantly like tired. You can't do anything anymore. And so, I was actually, having a hard time walking, because after you fall so many times and you go flying through the air, like in your neighborhood, like it's embarrassing, And so I finally just stopped walking the dogs. I was like, whatever, like they get enough exercise here. It's a big house, they run it all over the place. And I made an appointment for that Monday, and that Sunday I went to the gym. I had gone in and signed up for a gym that was close by, all women's gym called Total Woman. And I took a yoga class, and in the middle of the class, literally, the pose was, stick your arms out either side, one out, arms outstretched actually, and let your chin fall to your chest to get that stretch, to like get that stretch of your neck, right? And the next thing I knew, I felt that electrical shock going all the way down my back. And I don't know if I put it together right then and there, because I know I did eventually. But I remember thinking to myself, oh, I got an appointment tomorrow. I better tell that to the doctor. My legs were buzzing on Thursday, and today I felt an electrical shock down the back of my neck, all the way down my back, and then down all the way to the backs of my heels, and then up around the front of my toes, and then it disappeared. It was like split second. That's the hermit sign. So the next day I go to the doctor and I tell her, oh, you know what happened to me? I went to this, funeral, and while I was sitting in the pews, my legs started buzzing, but... And she goes, anything else happened to you? And I go, yeah, actually. on Sunday I went to yoga because I was so tired. You know, I figured maybe I'm tired because like I was retaining a lot of water then, you guys, but I didn't know that then. You know, I didn't know I was retaining a lot of water. It just, I just felt like heavy, you know? And so she says to me, when I told her about, you know, the yoga pose, her face went into a giant smile from ear to ear. And I thought, why is she like smiling at me? You know, I must have said something she liked. She goes, you, and she pointed at me with her pen and said, get to go. You get to go to a neurologist. And I go, what? And she goes, yeah, you get to go to the neurologist. And I looked at her and I said, wow, thanks. And she goes, yeah, you get to go to a specialist. And I go, wow, thank you. And she was like, yeah, you know, she gives me the referral to the neurologist. Then I get a call from a doctor's office in Kaiser, Hollywood, and it's Dr. Langer's office. And they want to know if I'd like to come in and see the specialist. And I was like, yes. And they set, by then it was already getting bad because like the fatigue was setting in so much that like I was literally like awake for maybe like an hour, and then I would have to take a nap for 20 minutes. And I'm talking go horizontal, shut my eyes and like tune out. So by the time I showed up at the Hollywood Kaiser, you know, which was September. It was in September of 2013. She goes to me, you know, I was so tired that when I was sitting in the waiting room, I was so tired that I was resting my elbows on my knees, and I was cupping my face with both my hands and sleeping. I was literally sleeping and literally sleeping sitting up because I was so tired. The fatigue was so bad. So it really was like the perfect timing, you know, because had I not been paying attention, I could have been still undiagnosed for like a few more years. So, you know, I was sleeping in the waiting room when they called our names. There were several other women there looking for Dr. Langer, and I could tell that they were, you know, some of them looked as miserable as me, but like I was on top of it. I was, you know, made up and I looked great. These people looked clean, but, you know, miserable. And so they looked clean and miserable. I looked, you know, like I was echándole ganas, like I wanted to give, you know, I was going to give it a fight. And so, you know, I got called in, I sat in, and I really didn't know where to start because, you know, I was still kind of piecing it together myself. And so she asked me, hi, you know, what are you doing here? What are you here for? Oh, no, I'm sorry. That wasn't Dr. Langer. That was the first doctor, Dr. Bernstein. Yeah, the first doctor was at Kaiser in Woodland Hills. And then later in November, they sent me to the specialist at Kaiser Woodland Hills, Dr. Langer. But, so yeah, the first doctor that I saw, he said to me, he looked at me and he goes, hi. And I go, hi. And he goes, why do you think you need to see a doctor, a neurologist? And then I said, okay. Like, I thought, I was floored. I thought, oh my God, he's going to like let me go and I'm not going to find out anything. And so I said, okay, so let me tell you the story. So I told him about, you know, the falls, and then I told him about the La Hermette sign, the yoga class, and then about the 4 days before sitting, you know, in the pew on August 5th. And so he said, oh, you know, this is good news. And I was confused because I thought, that's really, you know, you're telling me this is good news, this is bad news, you know, like you're supposed to tell me what's wrong with me. And he goes, you get to have an MRI. And I looked at him and I said, okay. And then I thought, you know, frick, you know, like I don't want an MRI. I want to know what it is. And so I said to him, well, you know, with all due respect, doc, you know, I understand that I need more tests, but what do you think it is based on your expertise? I said, you're a doctor, you're a neurologist, and I value your opinion. And he looked at me and he says, well, and he did his hands like this. And he goes, it could be. He says, well, it could be MS, but we're not sure yet. We have to have the MRI. And I looked at him and I said, oh my God, this is fabulous. And so in my mind, I knew it was either Crohn's disease or MS. And when he told me it could be MS, I ruled out Crohn's disease, because Crohn's disease, they had already started running commercials on the TV about like certain medications that could help you with Crohn's disease. And the symptoms seemed right, but I wasn't sure, only because I thought, yeah, that's not the main symptom. The main symptom is the buzzing, like, and the electrical shock, you know? In Spanish, we call those calambres, but there's no name for it in English. So I just had to stick with the hermit sign. So, you know, that neurologist told me, I need you to go home and I need you to read, you know, just keep reading. And when you're done reading and you're tired of reading, read some more. And so, lucky for me, I had already done all my homework, but to hear him say that was confirming that I had done everything accordingly to the best of my ability in order to reach a better quality of life. And you know, it's not an overnight diagnosis, and you have to do your due diligence. You know, your body tells you what's wrong with it, and you have to listen to your body. And so, yeah, I didn't have the common cold, but I had like skin. My biggest problem was skin problem. I constantly was getting bit, so I thought, okay, I have the sweet blood, you know, and I was constantly like, it took forever to heal. The healing process was just a long awaiting process. And when you're a dancer, you know, you've got to be blemish free. So like this, you know, impeded my working, because now I had to wait for not only, you know, the bite to heal, but like to scar over, and so I could put makeup on it. It was a mess. And so incidentally, I remember like early in my 20s, you know, just having a really rough time shaving, because like every time I would shave, you know, I would get bumps and then the skin would break. And I tried everything from using one shaver at a time and throwing it out to, you know, one shaver for only twice, or, you know, it just got ugly. And so, you know, I had to give it up. And eventually I would just, you know, when I would have dermatitis, I would go to the beach and I would jump in the water and I would, you know, tan it, and that's how I'd get rid of that. But it was a long, grueling, arduous process, diagnosis, and I'm happy to be on the other side of it. And oh, look at what she's doing. And this is, you know, what it is. You know, this is what it is, and that's why I don't go anywhere. That's why I adopted these dogs, because, you know what? I deserve to be happy, and if dogs make me happy, because I can't have a life, you know, I mean, I can have a life now. I've been on Rituxan for the last 2 years, going on 3. I did 1 year of Tysabri, and you know, I'm good. You know, I've known that I would be. Dr. Langer told me I would be on medication for the next 13 years, so I'm aware of that. You know, I'm aware I'm going to be on medication for the next 13, or from like diagnosis on. You know, another thing that I did was I had studied all the medications that there were for MS, and so I already knew what I wanted. I knew that I couldn't take Tysabri, because I was afraid that it was going. One of the ramifications of it was you could have, you know, you could run the potential danger of getting a brain infection. But to me, I was walking into walls, so I didn't care about a brain infection. I already had a brain infection, and nothing could be worse than what was wrong with me already, you know. And so, you know, I'd seen all the commercials about, the types of drugs that were out there, and I had done my due diligence, and so I knew I wanted to go on Rituxan. But I also knew that the better drug, okay, for demyelation or multiple sclerosis means many scars, and it has to do with your myelin sheath, the thin sheet covering the brain, okay? And so many scars means when you have like an interruption of your motor skills, meaning when the brain gives it tells whatever body part to move because of whatever is coming, in terms of the visual, right? So if you got to take a step and move out of the way of something falling on a falling object, or move out of the way because you're going to step down into like a hole or whatever, right? So like I already knew, like there's an interruption in the feed, right? So it's kind of like a speed bump, the message gets going, but when it gets to the speed bump, it has to go over it. And so by the time it gets to the other end of the speed bump and continues on to the message, to message whatever part of the brain needs to message, like it's already been interrupted, okay? So the best way I can describe what's going on with my myelin sheath is if you notice a wire, right? It's got the plastic covering out on the outside of it, but sometimes when the plastic covering gets shaved, you could see the wires on the inside, all the copper little wires. Okay, so that's basically what a scar is in my brain. Now, the human body is very resilient and it heals the scars, but now there's a scar there and the message still has to go over it, okay? So the scar doesn't heal. The falls happen because there's an interruption in the message, right? So yeah, it's like a little speed bump in your they call it dendrite. So from one dendrite to the next dendrite, there's like a flat line. My flat line has a little bump in it. So yeah, that's what's going on there. So that's my story, man. I don't know what else to do with it other than just I gotta keep living. So I gotta live with it. And oh yeah, this Tysabri drug that I was gonna talk about. So there used to be there is a movie in the 90s. The movie was called Lorenzo's Oil. I recommend you check that out. It'll give you a better understanding of the myelin sheath. There's a litter of dogs born in that movie at the very end. They don't tell you anything about it other than they were born without the myelin sheath, and they try to give these dogs medicine to remyelate their brain, the outer, make the myelin sheath that didn't, that wasn't there. And long story short, it is my belief that, I think that's what they sort of somewhat accomplished with this drug, Tysabri. The problem there is there's 4 different stages, I believe, of MS. There's relapsing remitting, which is the first form, and then it goes more severe after that into 4 different stages. The last stage, there didn't used to be anything for it, but now there's like 13, 14 drugs for it that you have the ability of choosing one of 14 different drugs, if you've got insurance, and that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I was afraid I wasn't gonna be able to do Tysabri, which is what I really wanted to do because I had read, and I had done my homework. And the drawback with that was, so half the nation is positive for this virus called the JC virus. The JC virus is named after the guy that they discovered it in the 1950s. They also discovered that JC virus is present in half the population of the United States. So I had not been tested for JC virus, but I knew that I had to be tested for it in order to try to get on Tysabri. And I tested for it, and I was positive for it. So I was bummed, but because I had done my homework, I knew that I, could still like do the Rituxan, which was my number one choice, next to Tysabri. And then when I went and saw my neurologist, or Dr. Langer, and I asked her about the Tysabri, she was overjoyed. She was like, "Really, you want to try that?" I go, "Yeah, but I know that I can't because I'm JC virus positive." And she goes, "You can try it." And I said, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "If you want to try it, you can try it." And she let me try it. And I was on it for a year. I would go in every month for 1 hour infusion therapy and then 1 hour of observation. And then I got to go home. So that was a hard year because I did that in 2014 when I got these dogs. And, I went through that crisis with that family. My family is, a very loving family. They were the owners of the business that I worked at. Yeah, they were club owners. And, I like to say I came with the furniture, and, they picked me up and brought me to their home and let me watch their kids. And these dogs belonged to their mother. And so, and she passed away, unfortunately. And so that's why I got these 3 dogs. But, yeah, that's my story. And that's Munchie over there. And, 2014 was a rough year, but who knew that we were going to have to deal with 2020 and 2021, huh? So, welcome to my channel. It is my pleasure to document my life for you, entertain you as much as I can, as often as I can, and as great as I can. And I hope that you like my video, share it, and subscribe to my channel, because I think I'm going to upload this to YouTube. Thanks, guys. Peace out.